Hey guys, so we're going to do something a bit different today. I know I normally do a lot of educational stuff, and as helpful and valuable as it is, it can get a little bit tedious. So I'm going to do a little bit of a backstory in terms of where I grew up, what I did, how things happened, and how I kind of got to where I am now. Some of you may or may not know, I'm from down south. Although I was in Stoke for a few years, while my partner was finishing a medical degree, I'm a southern boy, just outside of Brighton. All my family lives around here, so we're going to go off to my mum's now, because basically I moved there when I was 9 when my parents divorced, and I started up my first web design business when I was 13, and my second e-commerce business when I was 16, all from my mum's house in my bedroom. So I'm going to show you the bedroom, I'm going to show you where I came from. The idea is I want to kind of prove to you guys that I wasn't one of these guys that come from money or whatever else, and I think the fact that I didn't have a hard life by any means. I had a very, very supportive parental group. My mum supported me in everything she did. She gave me everything she possibly could. I was never starving for money. I didn't have a bad upbringing or anything like that. I never had a horrible life that you hear some people have. I wasn't blessed with holidays every year and things like that, but there was always food on the table. I didn't have designer clothes. I'd get clothes every now and then, but I wasn't struggling. I never really knew as a kid that was people had those kind of things, so I was happy. But that being said, it did motivate me, because as I got older and I started seeing what other people did have and things like that, it motivated me to actually a big driving factor was actually wanting to help my parents, who I knew always kind of struggled a little bit to make ends meet and stuff like that, and that was a big motivating factor, and it's actually something now that I've actually been gifted. I'm blessed to be able to help my mum now look for a new house, because as you're about to see, it's a housing association house. We lived there for years and years and years. She's extended it because she had my nan come and we looked after her there, or she did. And now I'm able to give back to her and help her with that. So that's truly motivating for me, and I think anyone that's been blessed enough to have supportive people around them, whether it be parents or friends or guardians, and have given you a lot and supported you, then I think it's only right to give back to them. Hopefully later on in life, providing I do well enough, I'll get into philanthropy as well, because I've always wanted to give back. It's not always about, I know I drive flashy cars and stuff like that, but I think more importantly it's about your impact on the life and everything that you do. So anyway, I digress. Off to my mum's now. Then after that we're going to go have a little look at my schools and things like that, just to kind of show you where I'm from, and should be a pretty interesting video for those of you that care, really boring for those of you that don't, and any questions on anything that I do, let me know. And hopefully I'll do a few more videos like this anyway, because I think it's a little bit different to the norm, which should be good. Neighbour's driveway, because I can't get the Ferrari on my mum's, because this is bad enough. Luckily it's got a lift kit on it. Mum, Harold. Never been on camera before. I did warn her I was coming around at some point today, she didn't know when.
Could have warned me.
I need to go into mum's fridge right now. And do you want a Coke? Cabin free.
Please.
Nice.
I'm loads out there, so help yourself.
When we used to live here, this extension came on after, because my nan was here. She passed away. How long ago was it?
What's that?
Nan. When she passed away?
6 months ago.
6 months ago. So my nan wasn't here when we first moved in, and then she got Alzheimer's ill, so we had to extend the house. So before, it was literally this wall here was like the kitchen, and then the little room in there was the living room, which is now Bernie's office, and then we've got one toilet. So it was a tight squeeze for all of us in there. There was 4 of us here at the time. My brother, who's a big personality, loudmouth, he was here. We're gonna get ambush Bernie. It's my stepdad. He gave me a load of shit when I was younger.
Needed it.
Yeah, probably needed it, to be fair.
Still need it.
This used to be the living room before. Obviously, my nan moved in here for her bedroom, and now Bernie's taken over as his office. Oh, plug by the way, if you're into flying remote-controlled aeroplanes, Esau and Gadgets. So basically, he sells lots of big kids' toys. Is that right? They spend lots of money on them.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if they did.
Yeah.
It's good.
I help him when I can, to be fair. I don't help him enough with his e-commerce. Do I, Bernie?
No.
I do help every now and then.
I don't pay you.
Yeah. No, you do, Liz. That's alright. Yeah, because paying clients gets priority. It got sold off. I got planning permission on it. Now we have a building site and lots of new people living out the back. We've got the affordable living blocks here. I don't know if you know, but when you have big housing builds, there has to be a certain amount. Government have to specify that you have to be a certain amount of affordable living, which is kind of like your council rented kind of accommodation. So that's down the back of here, which not ideal because that means we've now got flats. It's a lot higher. So my mum's not enamoured with that. So this is my old bedroom. This is where the magic happened. So I'll overlay some videos of this, but basically I used to have a desk that ran along here, a little single bed there, and there actually used to be an airing cupboard there, so it was even smaller. So this bit here used to have a big airing cupboard, and then that was the bedroom. I literally spent all my time in here. Literally, I'd get up about 6 in the morning, I'd be web designing. I used to play a game called RuneScape as well, so I was quite big into that. It's an MMO, RPG, massively multiplayer, online role-playing game. So that I spent a lot of time in here, and then basically as soon as I got home from school, I was up in here. I was lucky my mum actually let me have a computer up in the room, so I know a lot of kids back in the day weren't actually allowed computers in the room. So started up my first web design company in here. It was actually inspired. I actually used to play Warhammer, so when I was 12 I made a little Warhammer website. So I used to take pictures of the models I used to paint, and then I put them on with a friend actually who lived in Ditchling, which is up the road. We made a little website using Microsoft Front Page, which is a really crappy version. Now when you use a WordPress website, there's things like Wix. You can use WordPress. They have like themes and divvies. This didn't all used to exist. So when I used to make websites, there was kind of web designing interface software. One was called Front Page, which I used to use, which was really shit. Then moved on to Dreamweaver, which is an Adobe platform, which was a lot better, and basically used to plug and play. And then I realised that I had to get better at coding if I wanted to make decent websites. So I then started to use an online platform. I'm pretty sure it's still there. It's called W3 Schools, which I used to start learn how to do HTML, PHP, CSS, JavaScript. I bought JavaScript for Dummies, and I used to start learning and coding here and start making websites. More for myself to start with, and then I got introduced to a local company, a little local manufacturer, and I made my first website. I think I charged £325, I think it was. It took me, I think, about 3 or 4 months. Something now that I could probably do in like a day. But back then I was learning, and they knew I was learning. They didn't have a lot of money to spend, and back then companies weren't really investing in websites. It was kind of coming to the scene, kind of showing my age now, but like I'm nearly 30. I was doing this when I was 13, so a long time ago, 17 years almost. And back then I knew that websites was where it was going to be, but it was still kind of, people didn't even know what Google was. There was still, I think, Yahoo, Ask Jeeves was still searching as what people were using. And I knew that if I got into this industry now on the front end, this is back when Google AdWords were cheap. No one really was using this stuff yet. Now it's like everyone is, and that's why it's now so much more competitive. And if you're on the back end of it, it's much harder to get involved. So yeah, I did everything myself. And then when I was about 16, I started, through a contact with my dad's actually, got into the lighting industry, where I actually started using an e-commerce platform called Zencart, which is an open source software to build shops. Now you think you have, I still use Zencart because it's very good because you can still code it, and I've still got all the I know how to use it, but there's platforms such as Shopify now. You can use WordPress templates for shops, for stores. You've got Magento 2.0. There's loads of different softwares out there, but back then there wasn't. And that's what we used to build my first lighting store. I don't think I've got any of the you probably would throw them away. But what I used to do was, I spent my entire summer from between secondary school and college with huge books, huge books from wholesalers, like lighting retail wholesalers nearby, so places like TLC. There was a load of other ones as well that basically have massive product catalogues, and basically a picture and about a sentence and then a load of specs on the product, and there'll be about 5,000 products. They basically, what you used to do is just import everything in from China, and then basically what I would do is I started selling this stuff. I'd have a big catalogue of about 5,000 products, and I'd have about 10 of those from different suppliers, and I would sit there and I would literally manually input. I'd have the discs with all the images on, and if they didn't have decent images, I'd have to chase them up, or they would send me stock and I'd have to take photos, and I'd literally photo everything, get all the discs off, and then I'd have to rewrite all the product descriptions manually. I did thousands. I literally used to get up about 6 in the morning, start about 7, and I'd go to bed. There was a guy, I had a mate called Jamie in Hassocks, so I used to cycle down on my bike and we used to do a bit together because I was really struggling, so I paid him to help me. And I was inputting probably 300-400 products a day manually, rewriting all of them. And I remember at the end of the summer holiday, this literally took me 6 weeks, solid, every single day, Monday to Sunday, doing this. Now I would just hire someone, you could actually just write script to pull it all off and do it yourself. But because back then companies didn't have spreadsheets or big archives of their product data. So now if I was to go to a supplier and be like, look, I need all of your product information, all of your stuff, they'd be able to give it to me in a CSV that I could literally upload to the website. But back then it wasn't like that, so I had to manually input everything. And then I remember putting pressing live on the website, thinking there was going to be like waves of orders. There was nothing. And that's where my introduction to marketing came, where I started learning about AdWords and everything else. But yeah, so I won't go into too much detail about what I was doing, but this is what happened. This is my room. I must have spent thousands of hours in here, not sleeping, on my little desk. Like I said, I will overlay some photos and stuff like that. But so I started my web design company, my lighting company. Then what happened was when my business partner went away because he was handling the stock, it would all come here if he went on holiday or something, or I needed to take over something. I'd literally I'd have my bed here, I'd have piles and piles and piles of boxes all up to the ceiling in here, and I had like a little alleyway here to my desk chair, and I could get onto my bed and I'd be sending stuff out, so we'd rebook the courier to pick up from here. It's mental, thinking back to the stuff that I did, but my point being here is like, you got to start from somewhere. I wasn't given anything. And had I actually got a mentor or something a bit earlier on, that's why I always say that, like, getting advice from people that have been there and done it. It was harder back then as well to find people in the e-commerce industry. There was no one doing it. Literally, there's very few people doing it, and the people who were doing it are very coveted. Now it's so easy to find people that can help you. There's so many different platforms and systems, and you didn't have to do all the manual crap that I used to do. Like I said, I had no money then either. I was making a bit of money from the websites and stuff, but I was pumping that back into my stock and building that up. And I get a lot of questions actually, like, how did you get the money to fund your business? I started the web design company, which cost me nothing. It was just experience and skills, which then gave me enough money to start putting into stock. And then I also got a business partner who we went 50-50. I think the first stock order was about 3.5-4 grand. So we both put a couple of grand in each to get the website stock going. All the website and everything else I was doing myself. So the only cost was the initial stock outlay, and that was kind of built itself. And month on month, year on year, we built up and grew. So yeah, that's my backstory with my mum. So I'm going to head into, go look at my secondary school now and talk to you a little bit about that, and then we'll go up to my college. Just show you people what I did and where I came from. I know it's not the most interesting thing in the world, but I know some people have questions and they question my validity and who I am, where I've come from. So hopefully this gives you a bit more of an insight into me and what I did and where I came from, so you can physically see it. But yeah, I do miss those days. It was a bit more simple, and I had a lot of excitement, and everything was up. There was no down. I always knew that starting at the bottom with nothing, the only thing I could ever do was get better. So there was no risk. It was fun. And I try and pull a bit more of that excitement and elements back into stuff now. That's why I love starting new businesses now. That's why I'm always getting, as you speak to Jake, he's always like, you're always fucking doing something else, because I love that initial stage of starting something new. And I've always had that drive, which is why I think I became an entrepreneur, because I got such a buzz and excitement out of new ventures and new product, like new services that I'm going to start providing to people, and watching them grow, and ultimately get them running and then start something new. And I think I'll always enjoy doing that. But yeah, that's Mooch. Hey, Jinky. So this is my secondary school, Downlands, where I'm going to pull over actually. But that was my secondary school, Downlands, where, to be honest, I really wasn't very academically inclined. When I say that, I just wasn't really interested in academia. I was always questioned what we were being taught and how it was actually ever going to help me. Because I started a business so young, I was actually looking for things to learn to help me with that, and I realised that nothing at school, unless I was going to be a doctor or something, which I didn't even know about back then, that was even like a possible career path. why the fuck was I learning German? I could be learning something that could help me invest in my business that I was just starting. I started my web design company in year 8, I think it was. So year 7, I was a bit of a wet flannel. Year 8, still a wet flannel, but I was actually starting to look into business, and I was a massive geek. So I was actually building my websites for all of the kind of geeky stuff I was doing, which then led on to me doing it for businesses. But I knew early on that academia was never going to get me to where I wanted to be personally in life. So as I was saying, although school was good, what I learned at school was the benefits of being socially inclined or having good social skills. I was what your class is probably a chameleon in school. I wasn't a really popular kid, but I was popular amongst every single type of group. You had kind of like your rebel group who were like smoking in the corner. I got on with all of them. I was friends with the geeks because, to be honest, I was probably more inclined to be a bit geeky, and I got on with them naturally a bit easier. But I was one person that, no matter what friendship group it was, I was kind of intermingling between all of them. But I was never really well known at school. I was just known as someone that got on with everyone. And I think that enabled me to manipulate things and get what I wanted. If I wanted to go to a party, I was invited. If I wanted to have help with my homework or whatever, I've got the guys there to help me with it. And I realised quite early on that having social networks was so important to getting ahead, no matter because it's not what you know, it's who you know. And actually my dad taught me that very early on. And he always told me that if anything you can have in life, which I completely agree, when it comes to success, after mindset would be social skills, number one. If you can get on with people and you can understand people and you can be friendly with people, and then ultimately you can, I know it's a bit of a harsh thing to say, but you can manipulate situations socially for your own benefit, then you really are going to get yourself ahead. There's a lot of very, very academic people out there that have absolutely shocking social skills and don't get jobs, or they end up in a box somewhere in a lab, kind of tucked away, not really earning much money because they can't communicate with people. So the most important thing that I learned from school really was social skills and just how important they are. So I'm just trying not to get T-boned. Towards the end of school, I decided that I actually was going to become a stockbroker. I won't go into reasons why, but I was kind of drawn towards the money and the kind of social aspect of that, and it was quite popular at the time. And I started doing work experience and stuff like that, and I started getting involved in stocks and shares in year 10. So although I wasn't so academically inclined, because I decided what I wanted to do, all of a sudden I pulled my finger out my arse and I started getting good grades. I went to top set of everything by asking all my teachers if I could go up, because if you were in intermediate or foundation, you were capped on the grades you could get. And I knew that where we're going now, Basvic College only accepted B's and A's and A stars for the courses I wanted to do, which I thought I needed to go and be a stockbroker. So to cut a long story short, I ended up doing okay in my GCSEs. It was mainly B's and not particularly great, but I was doing pretty badly up until that point, until I decided that I actually had a reason to do good. And then where we're going now is the Basvic sixth form, where I decided I was going to be a stockbroker. What on earth is going on here? I pulled my finger out my arse, and then ultimately that's where I thought my career was going to go. I was going to end up in London, being a fund manager or a stockbroker or something along those lines. But I'll go into details when we get up there in a minute as to why that didn't actually happen. But McLaren, that's a P1. Fucking hell, don't see many of them around. All in all, as you can see, although I knew what I wanted to do growing up, I always thought I was going to be an entrepreneur, run my own business. That then changed, and then ultimately went back to wanting to run my own businesses again. But I'll go into that in a minute, and I'll discuss it when we get up to Basvic shortly. Just on the way to driving to my college, well, my old college, not college anymore, and thought I'd mention this actually because I'd forgotten I did this. It's called Dyke Road, and it's the most expensive road, give or take, in Brighton. Now, there's 2 or 3 ways to get to my college, but I used to have my little 106 Quicksilver. It was my first car, so when I passed my driving test, it was like halfway through my first year of college, I started driving into college. and I'd always drive this way because every single morning I would come down here and I would look at all the houses. As you'll see, some of these will be driving down, some of them are pretty ridiculous, but just because of the areas, they're mega expensive. And every single morning I'd visualize buying something like this every day. I had my favorite house. Funnily enough, actually, this house, not that one of the houses down here, I nearly bought the guy's G-Wagon. We ended up buying the one that my wife has now got, but I actually nearly bought the guy's G-Wagon that lived down this road. I think it was this house, actually. Yeah, this one. Was this one? Yeah, that one. Funny story. But point being was, I used to visualize every single morning owning one of these houses. I didn't even realize I did it. And during my lunch breaks, I used to walk up here and look at the houses, and it used to motivate me. I know it's a materialistic thing, but I think it's really important to actually set yourself goals and believe that you could actually end up owning something like this. Because a lot of people would look at these kind of things and think, it's completely out of my league, I'll never own it. Especially if you look at where I used to live and kind of the way my parents thought, they'd always tell me, oh, we can never own that. And I'd always say to myself, well, if it's humanly possible and other humans have achieved it, why can't I? And I used to ask myself that question every single day, like, why can't I own one of these houses or something like this one day? And I used to use this as motivation. I used to see the people that used to come out of the house and look at them and be like, they're normal, ordinary people. What is different about them to me? The only thing they knew, they'd had experience and they'd obviously had the knowledge to get to where they are. So I just figured that all I would need to do is figure out how these people got to where they are and reverse engineer, which incidentally is found that I'm very good at doing. I'm a very quick learner. That's one of my attributes. I'm not a massively academic person. I'm on the scale of things, I'm pretty bright. I did well at university. I got a 2-1 in economics. I'm pretty academically sufficient, but I'm not insanely out there like genius level IQ, which I know a lot of my mates were, that I just went to uni with. But what I realized what I was good at was looking at how people did things and working out quite quickly how I can manipulate my situation to do the same thing, and that's kind of what I can figure out, and is what I pass on as a mentor now and coach people to do, helping people figure out the route to their success, and that's ultimately now what I've figured out myself, because it's not always rocket science. It's just having good advice and following, being very driven, being very disciplined, being very consistent, and ultimately following sound advice and knowing what you're doing, the tasks you're doing every single day are actually working towards the actual goal that you're trying to get to, and having a clear path. And as silly as it sounds, I used to do stuff like this. And then ultimately, actually, when I got older, I started looking at houses. I actually started to go looking at houses I couldn't afford. The estate agents will love me for that, but I couldn't afford the houses. But I would go and look around them anyway, because it actually helped me visualize owning those houses, and to be honest, I did that with cars as well. I used to go and look at cars that I knew I couldn't afford at the time, but it made me believe that I could one day have that thing, and ultimately it's come to fruition. But having belief that it can be achievable will always give your subconscious the right kind of decision making, because as human beings, I think we're quite self-sabotaging in that if we don't believe we can achieve something, when we come to a junction where there's a right way to get to that point and a wrong way, we'll always subconsciously, if we don't believe we can make it there, we'll just take the wrong route, and we'll always self-sabotage or ultimately not allow ourselves to actually get to that point because we don't believe it's actually possible. And having that self-belief and doing things like visualization and belief is really important. And like I said, I completely forgot I did this, but I used to literally drive down this road and walk back up there, looking at the houses, looking at the people that were in there, and just being like, well, why can't I have that? What's the difference between them and I? And there isn't. If you're in that situation as well, don't ever believe. Yes, there's limits to what you can and can't do. We all have genetic limitations. I'm never going to be a top basketball player. That's not going to happen. But I knew there was things like in business and success that I could do. And I'd always say, if it's humanly possible, it's likely that you can do it. You just got to find the right advisors, get the right daily routines and the right skills implemented, and you can get there as well. Coming up to Baswick now. So coming up to my sixth form college now. So I was only here for 2 years, because you do your year 12 and year 13 equivalent here. I did, because I was hell-bent on becoming a stockbroker or a fund manager, I did economics, I did accounting, I did computing, business. I actually got headhunted. I was top of my class for business, economics and accounting, and I actually got headhunted by my lecturer Tom at the time. His mate was a stockbroking firm, and he was looking for talent to go and work on the phones from his best students, and I really regret not doing it. I was actually really nervous on the phone. I still don't like the phone, I'll be completely honest. I like being in front of a camera, I don't have a problem with that, but one thing I've always struggled with is being on the phone. And it was a predominantly phone-based job, and I wish I'd done it, because now I know just how important the phone is. I'm on the phone constantly. I do a lot of strategy calls, sales calls, I do meetings on the phone now, and ultimately it's gone that way. If I'd developed those skills earlier on, I think I would have been further ahead now. But anyway, I ended up foregoing that opportunity because I was nervous about doing it, I'll be completely honest. And it's a bit of a regret of mine, because I know that skill would have really come in handy. It's taken me a lot longer to learn it. And to be honest, I started doing some work experience. I worked for a company called Novus Capital, who are a stockbroking firm. I also worked for a company called Bruin and Dolphin, who are a fund managing firm. And what I realised is that I really didn't want to become a finance guy. I didn't like the environment. I didn't like the lack of. I didn't really feel very fulfilled. I'm not bashing finance at all, but it wasn't very fulfilling for me. I found that I preferred producing something or creating a service, and I didn't really get the same enjoyment out of finance. So ultimately decided against that. Even though I'd geared up my entire academic life to go and do that. I'd been offered a job at Bruin and Dolphin. As I would have been one of the youngest fund managers in London. They promised to pay and do everything to put me through all the courses, and I turned it down. And I thought I'd give myself. I still went to uni. I still did an economics degree, but my intention the whole time was never to actually work in London unless I had to. I always wanted to try. After college, decided that was it. I was definitely going to become an entrepreneur and run my own businesses. At the time, I had obviously still my web design and my e-commerce business was kicking off, and I started to earn a little bit more money. Not a huge amount. I think I was probably earning like 500 quid a month or something off my own back, which then slowly, when I got to university, started to increase quite substantially. But I decided that that's what I love to do, and even though I could earn more money at that time working in London, I didn't want to do it. So I actually ended up doing really well at college. I got pretty much all A's, ended up doing economics at university, but then jacked it all in for my own business. So yeah, I mean, I love college actually. It was the first time in my life that I actually felt a bit freer. I was actually good at the subjects I was doing because I wanted to do them. I think there's a big misconception actually between someone that necessarily isn't academic or lazy and someone that just doesn't actually enjoy what it is they're doing. I realised I always thought I just wasn't very academic. It wasn't until I realised that I just didn't actually enjoy school because I didn't understand why I was doing what I was doing that I didn't actually apply myself. It's the same way, like, I become very lazy if you ask me to pick up a shovel and dig something. But if you want me to go and build a business, I'll work every hour under the sun. I'm not a lazy person. It's just we need to find things that actually get us off, that get us up, get us motivated and actually want to get up and do it. And I don't think anyone's inherently lazy. I think we just are bored if we don't enjoy what we're doing or we don't understand it. We don't see an end goal. So that's why I was saying to people, try and find something that you love and enjoy. And then you won't be lazy at it, and that's why people say the money will come. It typically does, although some people need guidance on how to monetize, which is another important aspect of how to sell what it is that you're doing. But ultimately, I think you're on the right track if you're doing something that you do enjoy. And I realized that through college, through university, that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, and the academic stuff I did was a backup. It gave me a realization of what I didn't want to do, which is just as important. So you've got to try stuff as well. But yeah, so that was Basvic, sixth form college in Hove, and I'm actually going to go and drive to my first house that I bought now when I was 20. I was just having a discussion with my mum. I think I was 20. I was just turning 21, or I just turned 21, and I'll explain that when we get there. But we're going to go have a look at that now. Just chatting to Jake, and I actually thought I'd put this on camera. although it sounds all good and everything that I got this stuff at the age I did, like I bought my first, it was a 4-bedroom detached house we're just going to now, when I was just turned 21 or I was 20, I can't remember what it was exactly, but I actually had to completely no life it to get that. I had a girlfriend, a long-term girlfriend at the time, and I had a question of the day from someone on Instagram. They said to me, did you struggle to keep your relationships going and stuff when you're working? And the answer was, yeah, that ultimately ended really badly. Through other reasons, but I think a lot of it stemmed from the fact that I wasn't as involved as I should have been with the relationship, had that been the priority, which for me, quite honestly, it wasn't at the time, and I'll be honest about that. Getting the house and getting my foundation right, because I knew that if I was going to be with this girl or any people in the future, if I didn't have my finances right and my financial structure set, because my parents weren't going to help me with that stuff. I knew I had to do it myself, and no one else was going to get me it. So whether or not that relationship worked out, I knew that I had to get that sorted, and the quicker I could get it done, the quicker I get on the property ladder, the better it would be for me, and I could then enjoy my life a little bit more, knowing that I was set. And to be honest, it burnt through a few relationships. A big relationship of mine, I was with the girl for 6 years, that ended up ending because I was so driven on getting this stuff, and a lot of it was in my mind for her as well, but it doesn't really rub when I used to go up to a dad's house in Oxford, and he owned pubs, and I'd literally sit in a pub all day while they went out shopping and everything else on my laptop, inputting product information, running marketing campaigns, AdWords campaigns, and just doing that for the entire weekend while we were out. I'd go on holiday and I'd take my laptop and my marketing books, and I would literally just learn on how to market, and I'd be adjusting stuff on the website while we were away on holiday. I remember we went to Egypt as our first holiday, and it was pretty crappy because I was learning the whole time, but that came with the success that I have now. But guys, if you think it's going to be easy to be successful, it's not. You have to make sacrifices. You can do a lot quicker by getting people. This is what I probably should have done, is hired people earlier on, like I've said before, to help me get to those places faster, and I probably should have employed a bit more balance. But I am not someone that's balanced. Inherently, that is not my nature. I'm an all or nothing kind of person, and for me, I struggle to do things at 80%. I'll always do them 100. But just the point here is, it wasn't all roses, and you don't ever see the shit that goes on behind all this facade that you see in all these people with nice houses and nice cars and apparently nice lives. They had to go through a lot of shit and effort to get there. And it's just something I thought I'd share with you guys, because it wasn't all roses, and I was working my arse off. I was pretty miserable trying to build the foundation, because to get traction, you've got to get the cog turning. It requires a huge amount of effort. Once it gets going, it's a lot easier. Once you have money and you have resources and you have things moving, you have awareness and validation, and you get a bit more experience and confidence, then it starts to get a little bit easier without having all the stress of having nothing. But just be aware that if you're embarking on being an entrepreneur or running your own business, it's not always easy. In fact, a lot of the time it's not, until you get past a certain point where you still have to work as hard, but it's a different type of stress that comes with it. So we're just rocking up to where I bought my first house. It's a little bit quiet down here, so I've got to be a little bit on the sly. It's called Blackmoors. So I bought this house just before I was 21, I believe. I'll be quick because I don't really want to. It was that house down there at the end with all the vans.
Right at the end.
Right at the end. So I'm right tucked up in the corner. But I loved it. It looked over the field over the back. 4-bedroom detached. I made really good money on it as well. Did some work on it. And ultimately, I took money out of that to then start buying properties in Stoke. So I started from here. When I started seeing Hannah, my current wife, and hopefully be my only wife, we moved up to Stoke. I sold this actually later on. I had this for about 2 years while I was going to and from Stoke. She was finishing a medical degree. I ended up being in Stoke for about 2 years, and I've got several properties up there now, HMOs. It just made sense while I was up there, but I then sold this for a nice profit. I only owned it for 3 years. I wasn't there for long. I actually didn't spend a lot of time there because I was, before that I was seeing someone else as well who also had a flat up the road. When we were renovating a lot of the house, I was staying there for a lot of the time. So I never actually spent a lot of time. It was a big house for me to be on my own, and it was quite quiet, so I ended up not actually spending a hell of a lot of time there. And I was always working, so yeah, but that's that. So interesting. Feels a bit I haven't been back for a little while, so let's get out of here before we get someone wonders why there's two weird guys sitting at the end of the road with a camera. So guys, that was my little backstory. Hope you found it interesting. If you didn't, sorry. If you did, please subscribe. There's a lot of stuff I've forgotten actually. It's weird going back, when you actually go back to places, you remember a lot of stuff that you used to think and what you did. It seems like a different lifetime ago now. But yeah, hope you found it enjoyable somewhat, a bit different to the norm. If you like this kind of video, please give us a thumbs up, give us a comment, and I'll do a few more.